in the far northwest corner of Saudi Arabia, where the desert meets the Red Sea, the most audacious construction project in human history was supposed to be rising. Two parallel skyscrapers, taller than the Empire State Building, faced entirely in mirrors, running in a perfectly straight line for 170 kilometers across the desert. One building, the length of Portugal's coastline. Inside, 9 million people, no cars, no streets, no carbon, a city from a science fiction poster, powered by $1 trillion of oil money and one crown prince's ambition. That was the promise. The reality as of this year, a very long trench, 50 billion spent, construction suspended, and a leaked audit with a price tag so absurd it broke the calculator. This is NEOM, the most expensive line ever drawn. Today on the Money Atlas, what happens when the world's richest oil state tries to buy itself a future off the shelf? Quick thing before we dig in. If you enjoy stories that make the world make sense, subscribing is the best way to see the next one, and it costs you nothing. All right, let's get into it. Let's take the promise seriously for a moment, because the scale deserves it. The line, announced in 2021, a single linear city, 170 kilometers long, 500 meters tall, that's higher than any building in Europe or the Americas, and just 200 meters wide. No roads, no cars. A high-speed rail spine would cross the whole city in 20 minutes. Everything you need within a 5-minute walk. Population, 9 million, more than New York City, at a density never attempted anywhere. Mirrored walls so the whole structure vanishes into the desert. The renders were breathtaking. Silicon Valley futurists praised it, and urban economists around the world looked at it and asked one very simple question. Why is it a line? The launch was pure theater, and the theater was the point. At a glittering investment summit in Riyadh in 2017, instantly nicknamed Davos in the desert, the Crown Prince unveiled NEOM to a hall of billionaires, flanked by robots. Saudi Arabia even granted citizenship to one of them, an android named Sophia, generating exactly the headlines intended. Behind the scenes, the world's consulting industry descended like gulls on a trawler. McKinsey, BCG, Boston to Riyadh flights full of partners billing millions to point a civilization into existence. Former executives describe a culture where no idea was too absurd to study. An artificial moon, glow-in-the-dark beaches, robot dinosaurs. When a client has $500 billion and wants magic, the market supplies magicians. What it can't supply, as we're about to see, is physics. First, understand why this project exists at all, because the motive is deadly serious. Saudi Arabia is the world's most successful petrostate. Oil made it rich beyond imagination. But remember Norway and Venezuela from episode 4. Resource wealth is a countdown clock. More than 60% of the Saudi budget still comes from oil, in a world that has started slowly, unevenly, but unmistakably, to decarbonize. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030 is the kingdom's answer. Transform the economy before the music stops. Tourism, technology, manufacturing, sport, and as its crown jewel, a futuristic megacity that would announce to the world, Saudi Arabia is no longer an oil company with a flag. NEOM wasn't a real estate project. It was a rebrand with a construction budget. But between the render and the desert stands physics. A 500-meter building is a super tall. Humanity has completed only a few dozen, each $1 billion engineering saga. The line is, functionally, 1,700 of them, fused into two continuous walls. The mirrored facade, beautiful in renders, creates a glass canyon in one of Earth's hottest deserts, and a lethal barrier across one of the planet's busiest bird migration routes. Cooling, water, logistics for 9 million people in a structure with the footprint of a highway. Every engineering question got the same answer. Technology will solve it. That's not a plan. That's a prayer with a budget. And here's the detail that made economists wince before a single shovel hit sand: the shape itself. Cities are blobs for a mathematical reason. A compact shape minimizes the distance between any 2 points. A line does the exact opposite. It's the geometric worst case. Take the line's area, roll it into a circle, and you'd have a normal city about 7 kilometers across, everything reachable in minutes. Stretch it into a 170-kilometer line, and the average trip becomes dozens of times longer. 2 neighbors of the same city can live 3 hours apart. The entire 9 million-person city hangs on one single rail line, one breakdown from paralysis. The line isn't a new idea. It's an old mistake, drawn with a ruler. And before the money, consider the desert's own invoice. The line site has no rivers, no lakes, no aquifers worth the name. Every drop for 9 million people would come from desalinating the Red Sea, an energy monster in itself. Summer temperatures push 50 degrees Celsius. A sealed glass structure in that furnace is a cooling problem with no precedent at this scale. The official answer to everything is renewables, and to be fair, one flagship is genuinely rising. A green hydrogen plant billed as the world's largest, backed by real international partners, with real engineering. Notice the pattern forming. The parts of NEOM that resemble normal industrial projects advance. The parts that resemble science fiction remain fiction. The desert doesn't read press releases. Now to the money. Since 2021, roughly $50 billion has flowed into NEOM, more than the GDP of half the world's countries. What did it buy? Earthworks. A vast excavated trench stretching across the desert where the foundations were to go, some worker accommodation, roads, a stadium of cranes. Satellite images show progress measured in dirt moved, not floors risen. $50 billion is what Norway's entire sovereign fund earns in a good quarter. Remember, the fund built from saying no to spending. Saudi Arabia's fund spent it on the whole. The mirror walls remain exactly where they began, in the renders. Then came the collision with arithmetic in 3 acts. Act 1, 2021, 9 million people by 2030. Act 2, spring 2024. The target quietly collapses to a 2.4-kilometer starter segment, 1/70th of the city, housing 300,000. Act 3, September 2025. Construction on the line is suspended altogether, pending review. And then the leak that ended the fairy tale. An internal audit, reported by the Wall Street Journal, projecting the full 170-kilometer dream at $8.8 trillion, with completion around the year 2080. The city of the future had found its true delivery date, after most of us are gone. Sit with that number, $8.8 trillion. That is roughly 8 years of Saudi Arabia's entire economic output, not budget output, for one building. $20.8 billion per kilometer, which means every single kilometer of the line costs more than the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, times 10. For that money you could build 100 normal cities, or buy every skyscraper in Manhattan several times over. There is no economy on Earth, not America's, not China's, that could absorb this. The audit didn't just reprice a project. It quietly announced that the project, as sold to the world, was never buildable at all. Follow the checkbook and the squeeze becomes visible. NEOM's paymaster is the Public Investment Fund, $925 billion, one of Earth's largest pools of money. Sounds infinite, isn't? The same fund is simultaneously bankrolling a new airline, football clubs and LIV Golf, a 2030 World Expo, 2034 World Cup stadiums, and a dozen other gigaprojects. While the Saudi state budget needs oil near $96 a barrel just to break even, and oil keeps dipping far below it. Foreign investors who were supposed to shoulder most of NEOM's cost looked at the returns math and largely stayed home. When everything is a priority, nothing is. By 2025, even the PIF had begun ranking its dreams. The line ranked reviewable. The line wasn't alone. NEOM's portfolio included Trojena, an outdoor ski resort in the mountains of the Arabian desert, with artificial snow at 30 degrees Celsius, which somehow won the right to host the 2029 Asian Winter Games. In January 2026, Saudi Arabia quietly handed the games to Almaty, Kazakhstan. When a kingdom that spent years buying global sport gives a trophy back, the message is unambiguous. The mountain resort wasn't going to be ready, possibly ever. One by one, the futurist bullet points are being traded for something the renders never showed: realism. So what did get built? Sindela, a luxury island resort at NEOM's edge, marina golf hotels. It opened, it functions, and it's telling. A self-contained island resort is a normal project, the kind Gulf states genuinely excel at. Meanwhile, NEOM's messaging in 2026 has pivoted from civilizational revolution to industrial parks, green hydrogen plants, and AI data centers. Real, boring, buildable things. The revolution is being downsized into an economic zone, which was always the version that could work. It just didn't need mirrors. Here's the deeper economics under all the glass. Petrostates trying to escape oil have exactly 3 proven paths, and we've mapped them all in this series. Save the money, Norway's fund. Build the institutions, Singapore's discipline. Or grind out decades of unglamorous trade infrastructure, which, spoiler, is the actual Dubai story, coming soon in this series. What no one has ever done is purchase a post-oil economy in one transaction, like ordering a city from a catalog. Because an economy is not a building. It's an ecosystem. Companies, skills, courts, trust, and ecosystems compound. They cannot be procured. NEOM's tragedy is that Saudi Arabia has the money to buy everything, except time. There's a name for the deeper disease, and every resource economist knows it: the absorption problem. An economy can only productively digest so much investment per year, limited by its engineers, managers, ports, courts, and skilled workers. Pour in more and the surplus doesn't become growth. It becomes waste, inflated contracts, idle towers, consultants' fees. Norway understood this, which is why its fund invests only abroad, Episode 4's most underrated rule. Saudi Arabia is attempting the opposite, forcing decades of investment into its own desert at once, and NEOM's trench is what overabsorption looks like from a satellite. The kingdom's tragedy isn't a shortage of vision. It's a shortage of everything vision needs to become concrete. The lesson of NEOM travels far beyond the desert. Around the world, the graveyard of megaprojects, ghost airports, empty stadiums, bridges to nowhere, shares one autopsy result. The project was a message before it was a machine. The line's real function was to be talked about, to headline conferences, to rebrand a kingdom, to dazzle investors. And at that job, ironically, it succeeded brilliantly. You're watching a video about it right now. But cities have users, not audiences. When marketing writes the checks, physics writes the invoice, and physics, unlike consultants, never discounts. Maybe one day, a shining segment of the line will stand in the desert, 2.5 kilometers of mirror reflecting the sand, housing a few 100,000 people, visited by tourists photographing the edge where the future stopped. It will be, whatever else, the most expensive advertisement in human history. And the kingdom's actual future will be decided the same way everyone's is, not by renders, but by decades. If this changed how you see megaprojects, do 3 quick things. Tap like so more people find the video. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And turn on notifications because next time we go from the company that couldn't build a city to the restaurant that secretly became one of Earth's biggest landlords. McDonald's doesn't really sell burgers. Its founder said so himself. All the sources are in the description. This has been the Money Atlas. See you in the next one.